Okay, perfect. All right, so today we're going to, well, we're supposed to do just Rails like forum and associations, but today I want to take this time to like just really like pair program and just like even create our own app. Like last time, like we did in Sinatra, but very similar to it, but this time we're going to be using Rails, right? And I think you learned URL like forum helpers yesterday, right? How is that? Is that like understandable? Like how is it? What do you think? Thumbs? Yeah? Just be honest. If you feel like confident, then perfect. But if not, like that, I'm honestly here.
I understand it. I probably can apply it, but
Yeah. So it's totally normal. And I think the labs are a little bit outdated because now, as of Rails version 5, you must all know from the article that was sent out in Slack channel, right? What happened?
We're using form with and not form tag.
Exactly.
Or form for.
Yeah. So we'll be talking about that later. But just for the sake of, again, even though it's deprecated, it's not officially deprecated and it's still being used. There might be even legacy code now that people still use Form 4. So I want this time, like learning it's not bad at all. So let's learn Form 4 today. We are going to be using Form 4, but we're going to switch it to Form with today in this lesson as well.
Oh, we're not doing active record associations?
So we are going to be doing associations, but the whole focus should be on the forms.
Forms.
Yes, but you'll see, like last week, I'm going to be creating all these active record associations, but really fast. And if you do have any questions, just immediately shoot it, okay? All right, so number one thing we do is Rails is so like nice and generous, right? So I'm going to create a candy shop app. What this is that a user is going to have candies, okay? So all that, and you're familiar with this Rails new candy shop, right? Like this command? Yeah, so it does everything for us. Super nice. Takes some time. I think another like probably 10 seconds. So Rails is really nice in this. Like it creates a whole like boilerplate for you. React does the same. Facebook provides it, but you'll be learning that later. Actually, very soon, right? After 6 weeks. That's crazy.
Well, we'll start with regular JavaScript and then mod 4 is React?
Yes, because without JavaScript, you can't learn React. Yeah. Because React is officially React.js, meaning it's another like framework based off of the JavaScript language. Rails is also a framework that's based off of Ruby language, right? Okay, it's taking a little bit more than I thought, but depends on the connection, I think.
I was going to say earlier that like the nickname for like Austin now is like Silicon Hills. Like if you look that up, like it's associated with Austin.
Oh, really?
Just because of how many tech companies are moving here.
Yeah. All right, it's done. So notice that I have Candy Shop in my directory, right? I'm gonna go into Candy Shop. So it has every file that's been created. That's our whole boilerplate, right? Perfect. And I'm also just going to get into that right here. Perfect. All right, so you see how I'm opening up 2 terminals? Can someone tell me why I'm doing that? Exactly. So from here on, like there's a high possibility that you'll be running multiple terminals. And I like to be structured, so that's I always have like 2 terminals or even 3 terminals sometimes if I have to even work with the database. So that means I'm running 3 servers, right? One for the database, one for the like server with talking to the client, and then just my original console. Okay? So that's like the norm. Like it will happen.
Is Rails smart enough to not, like I remember in Sinatra, we get those binding port errors where like if you have another like Sinatra app running, you can't start. Because it's all going to start by default on the same port.
That's a very good question. So it depends on what category you divide it into, because specifically when I'm opening up 3 terminals, that means one terminal is specifically going to be a port only for database server, meaning that will be a different port. And also if I'm doing a front-end client-side browser, that would be another port. So you'll see like localhost 3000, but for the back-end you'll see like localhost running 3002 or something like that. So it's a totally different port and server. Yeah, but you'll be learning more of that like later on, like communication with the server. I think you learn specifically more about it in Mod 3, because that's like all front-end now, and you'll learn like more about it. But yes, that's a totally normal thing. And if you bump into any of those conflicts, again, you have to kill the server or find that server. All right, so did you learn about all the Rails like generators, like the magic generators? Like Rails G,
Model.
Yeah,
models.
Rails generate, yeah.
Yeah, what did you learn? Models,
Models,
Migration.
migration, controllers, anything else?
No.
All right, so there's more. So there's like resources, there's scaffolds. So today, I'm going to take advantage of some of it. And I'm not going to do the ones that you told me, because those are actually just doing part of it, but there's more that does everything for me. And I'll show you that to you right now. So a little bit about our model associations. It's going to be user and a candy. So we have two models. User is going to have many candies, so it has many candies, okay? User has many candies, and then a candy belongs to a user, okay? So that means I can immediately create, in back of your head, you're gonna be thinking, okay, now we have to have this MVC, like the MVC, and then we're gonna run the Rails command, the generator command, to build all the models, the controllers, and the views, right? That's the immediate thing that will pop up. And what I'm gonna do here is take full advantage, not here, but here. Can everyone see that? Should I?
No,
Yes.
good.
Okay. I think Heidi nodded her head before. Heidi, is that okay?
What? Yeah.
Okay. So Rails G, which is generator, you can also just do that, right? So G, Rails G resource. So I'm going to take advantage of resource, and I'm going to do this. Okay. But even before I do that, let's just take a look at our code. What code do we have even, right? So this is the boilerplate that I did after Rails new. And notice that I'm going to take a look into our app, look into our controllers, and see how I only have one controller here, right? And then I have models, which is also just one. And then I have views, which is only these layouts that I have, right, by default. But I have nothing else, right? And again, if you have any questions, just like interfere and just like raise your hand and just let me know. And then look into the DB. I have a seeds file that's been created for me. And then also I would like to look into the config, and let's look into the routes. See that? And this is all familiar with you, right? You've been working in this.
Yes.
Okay. So, but it's all empty. It's like boilerplate, literally. So now, let's see what happens after I've run. Oh, it's erased. Rails G resource user name. Okay. See that? So it tells us it created the migration file, right? It did it for us. Remember how you guys were all like creating that Rails G migrate and then like running that file name? It did it all for us.
Wow.
Well, okay guys, before you get all like mad and angry, like, come on. Always understanding what's happening under the hood is super important, right? That's why you came back from Sinatra and now you're in Rails and now we're saying, hey, there's a better one. And this is gonna be constant, this is gonna be even the norm for you when you're actually a software engineer, because there's always gonna be a better version, right? Hey, you've been doing this so far? Well, hey, I did this, now you can change. Like, this is the norm, right? So, like, right there, it creates the models, it creates even test files for us. It has a controller, it creates a controller file so you don't have to worry about any syntax issues or like plural, singular, all of that. See that? It even created the route.
Wow.
Yeah, so let's even double check that. Yeah.
So is name an attribute of user in that command?
Well, let's double check what it did for us. So now, watch this. Okay, immediately I see my user's controller file. Created. Boom. Yes, don't get mad. Right, now let's look into our models. Oh, a user model is created for us. And immediately it's already inheriting from the application record anyway, so it's doing everything for us. Oh, views created a user folder for us, but nothing's in there. Like, we have to create those ERB files, obviously, right? Now let's look at our routes. Here it is. Ha! It even created the routes for us. Yes, love it, don't you? All right, so it does a lot of magic and it's super convenient. Yes, I know, but going through again all that hardship makes you appreciate this, right?
No.
So wait, how does this incorporate, because we did Rails, G, resource, user, and name. So what does the name component of that command do?
Watch this. Where do you think we have to look for the database then? Because that's a question for database, right?
In DB folder and go to schema.
DB migrate.
So again, we don't see the schema yet. Yes, we have to DB migrate. So
Can we look at that migration file?
yeah,
This migration.
That's the name.
so that's the migration file.
So it's the column.
Yeah.
In the database.
So if you wanted to pass it other attributes, you just more spaces
Yeah,
and then space.
yeah. I'll show that to you. I'll perform that too. Mason?
How does it know it's a string?
Yeah.
Very good question.
Default?
Yes, default. So for the very first one, if you name something, it's by default string. I think most likely, even if it's multiple attributes, if you don't include a type, it's going to be string default. But do check that. But I know for sure the first one is that's the case. So it's the same thing as doing this. Oh wait, yeah.
So if you wanted to pass it into, you just do colon string.
User name.
Yep.
user.
Okay.
But definitely look into the documentations to officially know what the syntax are for that. Okay, so that's really cool. Now, let me see. Okay, now I'm going to create another one. And I said I was going to create a candy model, right? And then here, notice that I'm just doing name. See how my thing does all the autofills for me?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's just my thing. It's cool.
Is that just your terminal?
Yep.
User references.
All right, so here, notice, oh, and I can also do this, so. So I'm gonna do this, okay?
What is user references there?
So how many attributes do I have here? 3. One is name, which is gonna be a string. Candy type is also gonna be a string because I didn't name anything, right? And then I have user. This is the thing that, oh shoot.
So you're saying that the candy belongs to the user?
So what do you think I'm doing there?
That?
You're creating the association.
Yeah, so it's creating a foreign key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So user references, there's also another way to create that foreign key, but I'm just going to introduce references here for you, okay? And let's see what happens with this.
Can you repeat what you just said? What's it doing?
Sure. So I'm taking full advantage of the generator, which is called resource, right? And it's going to create all the MVC templates for us, right? The skeletons. And then I created a model called Candy. So based off that, it's going to create that skeleton. And for that table, I said I want an attribute name, but because I didn't name, I didn't give a colon like data type, by default it's going to create a string type. And then also candy type is also another attribute that I'd like to add, because I want to know if it's a gum or a chocolate or a lollipop, whatever, right? And it's going to be a string here. And then user references, this is the part that I'm trying to introduce to you. So notice how when there's a association, right? We have to have foreign keys if it's like a belongs to association, right? And remember, we have a belongs to association, right? What was an association? It was a candy belongs to a user, right? So that means my candy table should have the user ID information, correct? Right? So that's why I'm adding user references there, okay? And then it created all that for us. It did all that. And let's even double check if it really did what it was supposed to do. So now we have a migration file, and notice how it's by default string. So to answer, I forgot who asked, but it's automatically string if you don't name any attributes, the data type there. And then the references, here it says users, and then you see the foreign key here? It sets all that up for you. So far so good?
Yeah.
All right, so now, another thing I would like to confirm is we have candy model, and notice it has belongs to. So adding that user references gave me the associations for belongs to.
Oh my god.
Wild, right?
And you always add it at the end.
Yes, I usually do.
And so what happens if you have several associations, you just add it on towards the end?
Yeah. And then later on, you can even like probably modify your migrations if you think you need to update it, right? Again, I had this talk in the morning with one of you. If there's a situation where you feel like your table's gonna change or be updated, there's like options, right? We could just totally roll back to the very beginning, drop all the tables, and go back, and then change the migration file. But imagine, but that's not realistic, because when you get into a company or maybe your project becomes so large, you already have so many migration files. We're not gonna do that, right? We're not gonna roll back everything and then change something there. And remember how the labs introduce you that the reason these timestamps, like it says 2019, 11/26, the reason we have that timestamp is because it's good practice, it's good convention. Why? Because we always want to make sure what happened when. And this, like, because it's in order, it would track down what happened in order. And then it would also run the migration in order as well, right? So let's say I want to add a table, then what we do is probably we'll do Rails G migration, and then create that, like, add foreign key to this table, and then you'll create that table right there, right? Does that make sense, what I just said?
Yes.
Okay. So, here, notice that we have resources users now. Perfect, right? Okay. Now, so we have all the resources, and we have all that, but just one more thing. I want to go back to our associations. Notice how Candy has belongs to user, as I showed you before. But what about my user?
Has many.
But it doesn't have the has many relationship there, right? See that? So be careful. References refers to belongs to. Okay, so it's when it's a belongs to association, then you can have references and do that. But again, you can always add foreign keys in a different way. There's a different way too. But that's up to you to look up for, right? But here I'm taking advantage of references. So what I do is I just add has many. Now how do I do this? Like this, and then do I have to add the name? I always forget the syntax. I think it's like candies, right? Yeah, because it's a plural, right? So now I have a full association right there. So far, so good? Okay. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so,
No.
did I spell something wrong?
No.
Okay, now, before I move on, I'm going to show you, and I'm going to share this link to you guys too. So I found a blog, and this person talks about all these generators that you can take advantage of. You have Rails G model, you have Rails G resource, and you have Rails G scaffold, okay? So scaffold does even more for us. I did resource, right? But scaffold does much more. Like it creates all the even view files here for you, look. All the controllers. And it's why I would say stay away from scaffold for now. Because it just does too much for you, okay? So I would recommend using models first, because models does up to just creating the models, literally, like this. It just does the migration file, okay? The resources is why we get all the controllers. Again, models just do the migration files and the database setup, the model setup. Resources does all the resources and controller part. Scaffold will do all the view part too. So stay away from scaffold for now. You can use it later when you think you're ready. But you are not ready, okay?
Does it also create aspect?
They do have the test files too, I think. But I gotta confirm that. They do have test files, I just don't know if it's like specifically RSpec. But if you're worried about tests, I think we're gonna be using Bybug. So were you introduced to Bybug?
On YouTube.
On YouTube, but not on the labs yet? Okay, so I'll show that to you too. So yeah.
So this is sort of unrelated, but right now we're on a site that's not secure. What's like practice with that? Is it best practice to have a secure
Well,
HTTP?
Yeah, so you said HTTP, right? The secure version would be HTTPS, right? So that's something you'll be learning later, or even maybe after graduation. Like we don't go too deep into this, but don't worry too much about this, okay? And honestly, I can't give you a full understanding on how to implement the secure version, but it's always better to have a secure version, right? That's why you're even learning validations and all that, right? There's validations on the back end, there's validations on the server, there's validations on the front end. Like there's tons of validations, and you will have many experiences in going through that. But today, for the sake of it, I think you'll be learning validations tomorrow, but for the sake of today, we're not doing validations. Okay, so all these associations are done. What do I have to do next? I have all the migration files, I have all the models set up, I have the associations set up. What do I do?
Rails S.
Before running the server?
Migrate the
Exactly, migrate. My database is not created yet, right? So, see that? It created all the tables for me, right? And remember how I'd like to check in my database if it was really created? And that's just me. Yeah, that was just my previous practice. But let's see. Is there a way I could go back? Oh gosh. Then I would just look at from the very beginning. Web development fundamentals, Austin, Mod 2, associations, candy shop, DB. Remember, this is the file that I click into.
Yes.
And now browse data and have candies table, perfect ID, name, candy type, user ID. See that foreign key there? And then also I have users, which is just ID and name. Okay, all good? So my database is properly set up now. So now let's even try if, let's test if this is all working properly. Like, am I able to even create these instances in the table, right? So let's do Rails console. So do you know this command too? Okay, so and you know that I can just do Rails C?
Yes.
Perfect. Rails C. So now it's running the console for me. And here what I want to do now is I want to create sneakers.
Wait,
I thought we're candy.
Candy, you're right.
do you mean Snickers?
Oh shoot. Is that the spelling?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Snickers.
Okay, that is embarrassing.
It's okay. I only know because it's like my favorite.
Well, my favorite is Musketeers.
Not as good as
What?
Yeah, I know, everyone hates it.
I like it, don't worry.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. So happy someone loves it.
It's better than Milky Way. Milky Way is the worst.
What? I am not happy about your response. Alright, so I'm going to create the name, and then I think my candy had a candy type. So it's chocolate. That's how you spell it, right? Okay. Right. So after I've run it, my SQL command is it's shot, and then you see that this instance is created, right? Now let's see if it exists. Okay, there is that instance, but is it in my database?
No.
You have to save it.
Yeah. Well, create does the save for me, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, who thinks I'm going to see this in the database?
It's gonna be in the database.
Okay, who thinks it's not going to be in the database? Okay, Mason? All right.
I thought you did build.
I think no.
We're in the console.
It's just like a,
No.
isn't it just a test environment?
You have to refresh, right?
I did refresh. I don't see it in the database.
Wouldn't it have created that, updated that?
It
That might
should
not
have.
exist.
It exists in the console.
It says created at nil, so it wasn't created.
That's
But why? What happened here?
Oh, it's because it doesn't have a user or a.
Exactly. Remember, I said specifically it has to reference the user. It has to have that foreign key relationship.
So it can't create it because there is no user.
Yeah. So I'm going to create Edwin. So Edwin is created, right? Let's double check. See that, Edwin?
Yay!
Now, are you happy about my name or?
Just that we.
Okay.
Something.
So now I'm going to run this again.
But-
But this time, yeah, that's what you were going to say, right?
Yeah.
What should I add here?
Shouldn't you add in front? Oh, well, I was gonna say, can't you use user.candy.create, and it'll create.
Oh, it will. But, oh wait, but you said user.candy?
Yeah. Oh, but we're not. So it'd be candy.user.create.
Yeah, so hold that thought and play around with that later. For the sake of this lab, I'm just gonna move on. But this is what I'll do. Like, remember that user reference that I did? Because of that, now I can do this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So how I created Edwin, right? So the Edwin variable is that instance. And I could just send it as the user.
Okay.
But you don't have to send it as a string.
Because,
'Cause it's
Just
not
that instance,
that got
yeah,
created.
exactly. It's an association that we're taking full advantage
you
of.
created it when you.
Yeah, so now you see all the updated ad and all that. So that means I should see this in my database. Perfect.
Whoa, cool.
See that?
Yes.
All right. So that's really cool.
Can I ask another question?
Yes.
So when you ran that again, oh, never mind. Snickers already existed, so it just updated the Snickers variable.
Mhm.
It didn't create a new
Yeah.
object.
So
Wait, how did it know that? How did the database know that it was Edwin that added Snickers?
I think I ran my command
With the. Wait a minute.
here. That's my command. So notice I have this. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you copy paste that into Slack? Or it's never mind.
Oh
I just really like it.
I will upload this. So you'll see this in the video. All right. Now I'm just gonna close out of it because I know everything's working properly now, right? Okay, so what, am I missing anything? No, okay. All right, so remember I told you, and the link that I sent you last Friday was that 7 standard controller actions for Rails, the table, do you remember that?
Yes.
So let me just show it to you right away. Remember this table? You all see that? Yeah. So that's a really, really helpful table, right? So that means right off the bat, it all became muscle memory to us, right? Meaning I could create a controller just like that. And believe me, I'm going to do this manually. It's not like some magic that I'm going to do. So let's get rid of the ones that I'm not using.
Could you also just do generate controller? Or will it not? It doesn't matter. I'll watch.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to know.
I don't want to make anyone angry here, so let's just hold that thought. Oh, even before that, sorry everyone. I also like to double check if my routes are all properly set up. How do I check my routes? Exactly. And notice how all the routes are set up. Like, it has more than that. And this is one of the reasons why I tell you not to like take full advantage of like scaffold and everything. Because notice even this makes us like, what the heck is going on? But fear not, you do have all the stuff that that's familiar to you right up here. And if it has a proper format if I enlarge it and see how it's all this is all familiar, right? The URL helpers, like candidate candies, new candy, all that set up. You see that? Cool. All right. So again, muscle memory time, which is not. I'm like taking a look at my notes. Yes.
Whenever we manually create our routes, sometimes it only allows, like, sometimes you have the option to just use only. Whenever we're generating it here, it creates all of them.
All of them.
Okay.
But going back to your question, which is kind of important, right? Like super important actually, is this. You can do that, right?
Okay.
And if you want to just do like new, show, and all, like you name it, you can take full control of that. But I just want to have all the 7 for now.
Yeah, like why would you want just some of them?
I don't know. Maybe there are situations that you need like some of them.
Security, maybe?
Maybe, yeah.
Update something.
Maybe for the same reason, like there's attribute assessor and reader and writer, like you could do assessor for all of them, but you
Yeah.
only want to.
I mean, there should be always reasons, but then also like let's say we don't even need those routes, then and because we set those routes, it's all running on the server. Like we don't want that, right?
Okay.
And imagine if we like have a route that somebody like again like security issue. Let me on the browser like just do /edit, and they could just go into that edit and they just do something crazy. Like all those things like exist for a reason, right? So there must be a reason for all of it, right? But no like one right answer for that. Just everything is there for a reason. So, now, remember the 7 actions? Can you tell me what the 7 actions are? Or actually, I'll just be writing it. Show. Okay. New. Create. Edit. Update. Is it delete? Or is it destroy? Delete?
No, it's destroy.
It's destroy?
Destroy!
Nice. All right, so that's the 7 action controllers, and that's in the table, right? Index, new, create, show, edit, update, destroy, right? So far, so good? Yeah? Okay. So, we have all this. And this is why I said, like, get used to these terminologies in Sinatra lecture last time. Remember that? I said, like, hey, in Sinatra, we're just going to name all the files new, show, and I promise you in Rails, there's going to be a reason for that, and this is the reason for it, okay? Now, what do I have to do here? I know, like, this is like muscle memory now, right? Right? And I know for show, probably going to do ID, yeah. Here, maybe I'll just do user.new, right? Just create an instance. Here, what am I going to do in create?
User.
User dots, save.
So we'll just do create for now. How about that? And I'm assuming we have to put something there, right? I'm going to leave it for now.
I need the redirect.
Yeah, so after I create it, I would have to do the redirect, and I'll redirect it to just all the users or
The index.
the index? Okay. So what do I have to do? I could do that, right?
No, user path, or user's path.
Well, let's double check. Is it user's path or user path?
User's.
Index.
Where can we
Into the index.
Where can we confirm this?
And to do Rails routes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So again, if you don't know, double check. So look at our routes. So which one do we have to use by looking at this?
Users.
Well, it depends on the user experience, but for now, let's just say we're going to take it to that single user that was created. Okay?
User.
User, right?
Yes.
So we could just look at these prefixes and see that the user path exists, which is ID right there. So we're going to use this, right? So user path, and then like that, right?
We want to pass that user
Yeah.
argument.
But I'm also going to tell you we can just do this.
Really?
Yep.
That's so easy.
But again, don't get too used to it because, you know, just got to understand what it's really doing.
So if you want to redirect to path users, you cannot do this, right?
If I just do this, you mean, right? If I do redirect to users and show all the users,
To index.
would this work?
I have no idea.
Who thinks it's going to work? Who doesn't think it's going to work?
Could work.
I don't know
Or
what
go
it
to the
is.
index.
Well, what is at users here? Do we have access to at users here?
No.
No, right? Because it's an instance variable, right? So very good point. Yeah. So if we wanted to do that, we would have to define this here and then do users. Does that make sense? Okay, but I will show you this on the view, like how we're seeing all this, right? And I'll show you that these two work as well, okay? But for now, let's just do all the settings. Now, what do I do here? I'll probably even find that, right? Because I have to find the existing ID, that user, right? I think I should be fine with this. What do I do with update? Am I missing anything here? What was that?
User define.
So I have to user.find? Okay. Like this?
Rails like,
Okay, and then what do I have to do?
I think you have to put brackets around ID.
Good call.
Is there a way that this can just all get generated for us?
I do
The
not
scaffold
know
that-
any of it, but yeah, I do not know what you're talking about. All right, so someone said update, right?
What?
That's the built-in method for updating an instance. So notice when you're updating an existing instance, you have to call it on an instance. You can also do this, right? But don't do that. Have a habit of doing it directly on the user itself. The user, like that specific instance, okay? Because there will be like some problems later on, like whether it's a validation issue or whatsoever. And then what do I have to do? Right, it's like the same thing as create, right? And then I'll probably, after I do that, I'll probably redirect it to, no, the user, right? And if it's confusing, let me know right away, okay? And the destroy, I'll do the same thing. Params, I find the user, and then I destroy the user, and which is this. Just like update, just on that instance, call destroy, and that instance is destroyed. But we're not done here, right?
Redirect
Yes.
Yeah.
And this time,
to all.
we can't do that specific user because it's gone, right? So to all, as Mason said, right? So what do I have to do now? What path is it?
User apps.
Exactly, right? And again, if you wanted to do this, which is really unnecessary, right? Because you're adding another code of line, and then you could just do,
Oh yeah, users.
oh. You can do that, right? But that's unnecessary. Okay, so far so good? All right, now, remember, we're not done yet. Remember the create? I mean, we know that we can do like name and then give that params, ID and all that, right? But we can do better. We learned about strong params, right?
Not yet.
Well, take this lesson to learn about it. Well, actually, this time I'm not going to go too deep, but for the sake of this lecture, but make sure you know what it does. And I'm going to show you how to compare what the strong params and params is. I think I told you this yesterday morning that I'll show this to you. So, private, you're creating a specific method, and we're going to call it users params. And what I'm doing here is I'm going to call on the params, because you know how params is going to have is a hash, right? And then what I do is call another method on it, and what you just do require, and then you do user, because our information is going to be in a hash that's user, and then all the ID and name and all that. But this is going to make more sense when I print it out, okay? Just for now, understand like this is what you do. And then so we're not done here. We got to say permit. The reason it's called permit is because of validation issues. Like there's like authentication token issues later on. And if you don't have this, you'll see that it pops up in the browser. So you have to have permit.
So is permit another method that just looks at the token and makes sure?
It creates the token and then it sends in the information that kind of needs security. So in this case, we're saying, hey, this information is going to be coming as in the params hash in this user key, okay? But this will all make sense when I print it out, okay? I promise you. So that means because I have users param now, that means I can within this scope call users params. So what I do is in user create, instead of doing all that crazy stuff, I can just do users params. This is the same thing as just doing this.
And what are we doing there?
This right here,
And so what are we doing there?
right here on line 15.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were talking about line 3 or.
No,
but-
like why are we doing I think you lost me a little bit in terms of like, the private, I understand, and then like why are we putting that in
Like, why are we doing these codes right here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is a lab, and again, I'm not going to go over this right now, but just briefly going over. And in the lab, it shows you, it kind of demonstrates that authenticity issue. Like, if you don't have this here, and you get information from the forums, then there's an authenticity issue, and that your browser will just go into an error and say, hey, you need an authentication token or something like that. So this creates that authentication token for us on under the hood, and it gets all the necessary hashes that we need, the information, the params,
that in create.
and
Update.
because remember we're using the form and we're receiving information from there.
Yeah.
And this is like for security issue again, like validations and stuff.
So like anytime you're taking info from the client side, you need that, right?
It's good practice, yes. Like imagine you have passwords and stuff, or maybe even a specific user that updates his profile, and then if you need this permission so that only that specific scope of form of that specific user can be manipulated and organized.
So like it's like in other words, if I were to, if Edwin makes Snickers,
Mhm.
that now only Edwin can update Snickers.
Technically on that browser, right, in that the view that what we're looking at, right? Because it's going to be specifically only for Edwin form, right? Edwin's form, right? And then in that information, we're putting all these information there. Imagine if it's like a profile where like I'm changing my password or my address or billing address. Like I don't want anyone to like know about that, right? I don't want anyone like to hack it or something, right? So this is like specific permission.
So it's taking the specific data that's input on the form. It's not actually looking at like the user sessions tokens or like
So it's
their credentials
so
or
again,
anything.
I'm gonna show you like what it looks like. It looks almost like the params hash, but it's a strong params hash, meaning it's a private hash, and you're gonna see what happens. Like it's gonna be a hash that like looks like something private, and I promise you it will make more sense when I like print it out and show you. Okay, but like why we're using it and how it's working, make sure you go over the lab, and I think the lab will make more sense after going through this. So, but notice how in the create I'm running this right here, right? And for update, I'm doing that, right? And we don't want to do that as a developer, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I created a method, a private method here called users params, which is just running that right there for us. And all I do now,
It's easier to just call that.
exactly. So I'll take rid of this. I'll also take this. So far so good? Everyone? Hopefully I'm not missing anything. Okay. All right, so that's that. So we immediately already created all the 7 controllers, right? This is all muscle memory. All right.
Now we can just copy that in the candy.
Yeah, we can. No, we can. But I'm gonna finish up the users MVC first. So after this, I want to create the views file now, right? So in this users file, what do I need? What ERB file do I need?
Which one are we working on first?
All of them. I want to create all the skeleton first.
And then index.html.erb.
Cool. Cool.
Editors.
New. Edit, yeah.
And that's all, right?
Yes.
Yep. Perfect. All right. So now, let's immediately create our index file, which is for all users. Okay. And I'm just going to do this immediately because you already know everything, right? So,
Know it all.
and remember I like to do this, and this is just me, because I want to see what I have available. So I'm working on the index. So I know I have this instance variable, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to iterate through this whole thing. So users each do user. Oh shoot. Okay. And
Something that will manually write these ERB files for us.
again, there's I don't know what you're talking about. All right. And ask me a question if you have any questions or concerns here. But this is all basically almost the same as what we did last week for Sinatra forms, right?
Right.
Now, this might surprise you a little bit, maybe not. Oh, we already used this before, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Oh, wait. Why is no one telling me that there's a space here?
I didn't know.
I thought this was pair programming.
I didn't know that.
I'm just kidding. All right, user.name, okay? And then I'm going to do user path user. So what am I doing here? This is, remember, this is creating an ahref on HTML, right?
It's taking user.name as the text that it's linking.
Yes.
And then the URL will go to the user path.
Right, so this is sort of, this part right here, user path user is sort of like the href link, right? And this is what we'll see as text, as you said. Perfect. But here's another thing, I think I could just do that. Okay, so path, you can always just like do this. As long as it's an object. Again, as long as it's an object instance from the model, then you can do this. Does that make sense?
And if
Where
you're,
did the link go?
So Rails automatically knows, like looking at that instance, it just keeps track of it and just knows to hit that rel. So this immediately knows it's just like what we had
we're already
before.
loading, is it because we're loading it from index, which has access to user.all?
Mhm.
So basically, we have access to anything that's in the action method.
As long as we know what that instance object is, right? Like again, remember when we didn't have that instance variable here, remember, I think May, you pointed that out, right? What happens if we do redirect to users here somewhere, right?
Yeah.
We can't because it doesn't know what that users is, right? So everything makes sense so far? Okay, and I'm also immediately just gonna create that show file now, which is here. And all I'm gonna do here is really let me know if you need a break.
I need a break.
You do?
Yes.
All right, how about if we just finish up this view file and then I'll give you like a 5-minute break. How about that?
Okay.
Okay. So here, user.name, and that should like give us just that show page with that name user, right? And I know I have an instance variable. And then I'm going to create the form now. And I'm just going to do all this right here immediately for you. So, oh, maybe I should get a break here because I'm going to do the form 4, and that's what you guys like to look at, right? Cool. All right, let's take a 5-minute break.
During the code challenge, are we allowed to
The form?
refer the syntax for the form tag?
Again, like if in the code challenge, when you're doing this, of course, if you make it function like 100%, that's 100% great right there, right? But if you get like the syntax wrong and we know like it's just the syntax that's giving us the issue here, we'll give you partial credit for that too, right? You're not gonna like immediately fail just because of that.
So is that going to be similar to what we're doing for the code challenge?
I believe so, but let's see our code practice challenges. Can I pause this?